All right, let's talk about a quiet revolution that's happening right now in the world of AI. There's been a massive price collapse, and frankly, it's rewriting all the rules for how we build products. Today, we're going to break down exactly what this means for you and your long-term strategy. So let's get right into it. So, what's our game plan? First, we'll hit you with the staggering number that's driving this whole thing. Then, we'll take a quick look back at what we're calling the old AI tax. After that, we'll unpack the three big reasons why the price crashed so hard. And that leads us to the exciting part, the new agentic era and what it unlocks. And finally, we'll talk about your next big challenge as a leader in this brand new world. Okay, let's start with the headline, the big number. Honestly, this single data point is the reason the entire economic model for building with AI is being completely flipped on its head. 90%. Just let that sink in. We're talking about a 90% drop in the cost of top-tier frontier AI in just 2 years. Now, this isn't just some temporary price war between competitors. No, this is a fundamental structural shift. The very asset of intelligence is deflating in cost, and it's about to reshape every single product roadmap out there. To really, truly understand how radical this 90% drop is, we've got to rewind the clock just a little bit. We need to remember what things looked like just a couple of years ago. Think back to early 2023. Using a model like GPT-4 felt like driving a supercar. I mean, it was incredibly powerful, it was amazing, but the running costs, they were astronomical. For any product leader trying to build something complex, that cost wasn't just a line item on a budget, it was a genuine roadblock to innovation. And this table just lays it all out, doesn't it? The old world versus the new. Just look at those costs for GPT-4 back there. $30 for 1 million tokens in, $60 for 1 million out. Now, if your product needed the AI to think through a problem with multiple steps, well, those costs would stack up so fast, your project would be dead on arrival. It just wasn't viable. Now, fast forward to today, and we've gone from that scarcity to what we can only call abundant utility. The big question is, how did we get here so fast? So, this didn't happen by magic, and it wasn't just about market competition either. This price crash was really driven by 3 deep technical pillars that fundamentally changed the cost of computing intelligence. These are the 3 big drivers we're going to quickly unpack. First, making the models themselves way more efficient. Second, a really clever processing trick called speculative decoding. And third, something a bit more familiar, good old hardware saturation. First up, architectural efficiency. The game changer here is something called mixture of experts. The best way to think about it is like having an entire team of world-class specialists on call 24/7. But instead of paying for the whole team's time, you only pay for the one specific expert you need for that one specific task. It lets the AI have this vast ocean of knowledge, but you only pay for the tiny drops you use. It's hyper-efficient. Next up is speculative decoding. Now, this is a seriously clever efficiency hack. Imagine you have a small, fast AI model that quickly sketches out a draft of an answer. Then, the big, powerful, expensive model just comes in to quickly review and tweak it. It's like a junior-senior partner dynamic, and it massively cuts down on the expensive GPU time needed from the senior partner. And finally, it's about good old supply and demand. You remember all those massive investments in giant AI server farms a few years back? Well, they're now fully online. There is just so much more AI-optimized computing power available, and that glut of supply has driven down the raw cost of compute for absolutely everyone. Okay, so intelligence is now cheap. It's abundant. What does this actually mean for you as a product builder? Well, this is where things get really interesting. We're now entering what the source material calls the new agentic era. This slide right here really gets to the heart of it all. We are moving away from using AI for simple completion tasks. Answer this one question, write this one email. The high cost meant we could only afford to ask the AI to do something. Now we can afford to ask it to think. That internal thought process, that 5,000 token loop that was totally out of reach before, is now basically free. And this quote just nails the strategic pivot perfectly. Your job as a product leader is no longer about obsessively crafting the perfect short prompt to save a few cents. It's now about designing systems, true agents, that can leverage this incredibly cheap intelligence to think, to iterate, and to solve really complex problems all on their own. So this brings us to our final section. And what this really does is reframe the #1 challenge for every executive and product leader who's paying attention. For the last few years, your biggest constraint with AI has been your budget, right?
You had to manage scarcity. You had to be really careful about where you deployed this incredibly expensive resource. Well, that era is over.
The new challenge is not your budget, it's context. When you have this fire hose of nearly free intelligence, the big question becomes, how do you keep it focused? How do you give it the right goals, the right guardrails, to make sure this incredibly powerful resource is actually delivering value and not just creating a lot of noise?
So we'll leave you with this question. This deflation of intelligence, it isn't just a small incremental improvement. It's a fundamental phase shift in what is even possible. It's time to go back, pull out those old product roadmaps, those ideas that were shelved as too expensive or technically impossible. Because the real question for you and your team now is this: with intelligence as a nearly free utility, what will you build?